Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Next Level Healing. I am so thrilled at the guest I have for you today. He is a new author. He is an agent and producer that resides in Los Angeles. To introduce him, I'm going to read what Gabby Bernstein, the New York Times #1 bestseller, wrote about him. His name is Jorge Perez. She says Jorge wrote a blunt, hilarious, and uplifting new book called the Shut the F Up Method. It's the ultimate guide on how to break the cycle of complaining. So important because we don't even realize half the time when we're doing this. Witty and refreshingly honest, he delves into why we get trapped into complaint spirals and teaches us how to distinguish between legitimate grievances and incessant griping. Part tough love manifesto, part radical self-improvement program, the Shut the F Up Method is a wake-up call for anybody ready to ditch the moaning and groaning and start living a happier life. Welcome to Next Level Healing, Jorge Perez.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. So great to be with you, Tara.
So we met through a serendipitous way, of course. We're both huge Dr. Joe Dispenza fans. I just went to my 8th retreat, and that's how I met somebody who turned me on to Jorge. He's got me beat, though. He's been to 15. And so I downloaded his book. I wasn't expecting to fall in love with it, but I was at the gym, and within minutes, I realized, wow, this guy and I are on the exact same page. I was laughing my tush off, which is so important because, Jorge, don't we have to have a sense of humor about all of this?
Oh my God, you have to have the biggest sense of humor because this whole thing is ridiculous, in the sense that and we can go down the rabbit hole so much deeper. But yeah, I think if we really consider that, we're just passing by, so all these things that we're so wired to think it's the end of the world, it's like we almost have to have like a healthy relationship with our mortality, because that is actually what's going to give us the impetus to live a lighter life. Because then we'll always be like, wait a minute, we're not going to be here forever. Just keep going.
I so agree. There's wisdom teachers that say, let death be your advisor. And I mean, truly, I've interviewed a lot of people who had near-death experiences. And I mean, if you live your life with the perspective that you're going to have to go back and review it, not only from your point of view, but the people that you interact with, wow, that really changes the game a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like and this is what a lot of the book is about. We're so wired to survive. Our brains are not wired to make us happy. They're wired to survive. We're the descendants of survivors, right? Our ancestors were, no one came to America that's not an American Indian because it was a little chilly in Europe. These people, they cheated, they lied, someone murdered, someone's feeling guilty that they left someone that they murdered or that they didn't, who knows, right? So now we're these survivor brains with Amazon Prime and we're still wired to survive, but the circumstances have changed, but yet the mechanics of the brain are the same. So how can we rewire these survival tendencies that we really don't need to put in practice anymore? That's the question.
So what was the impetus behind writing the book? I know you're a huge Dr. Joe fan. You unfortunately lost both your parents early to cancer. What was the thing that really was the trigger to get you to write this book?
Yeah, so it had to do with both my parents' death, because I immediately became mildly obsessed with epigenetics, which is the study of how we metabolize stress and all the things that stress sets off in our body, predisposition diseases like cancer or anything else. So once I got into the work, I actually started working with Dr. Joe's team in staff as a volunteer. And that's actually where I had the big epiphany. I started noticing that people were still, whether it was staff or whether it was participants, they were still complaining about people, complaining about the food. And then it just hit me, Tara. It hit me like, wait a minute, you can go to all the retreats in the world for all your life, but if you don't stop the complaining, then it's never going to work. It's almost like you could go to all the greatest boot camp classes in the world and know exactly what exercises to do and even do the exercises for a week retreat. But if you come back home and it's Pizza Hut and Dunkin' Donuts time, then you're stuck in that wheel. Nothing's going to change. So the Shut the F Up method became an homage to, you got to close that mouth. Just like you got to close that mouth and not eat the pizza, you got to close that mouth and not complain.
Exactly. And the words that the words that come out of our mouth are as important as well the food that goes in, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So,
Hey guys, studies are showing that 68% of people that watch podcasts regularly don't click the subscribe button. Do me a huge favor. If you like this content, click subscribe so other people know where to go for the cool stuff. Thank you.
we are living in a culture where like speaking up is highly glamorized. Nothing wrong with that, right? But we're always hearing, speak up, don't hold back, speak up. But this is not repressing. This is being mindful. You know what I mean? Like I'm still like I wrote that shut the F up 10 commandments, right? And one of them is like if you have a situation, like tell one person. Go to your therapist, go to your best friend, right? And that's it. And actually tell them that they're going to be your one person, because that creates a really beautiful, powerful bond. I mean, if you grab your best friend and you go, you know what? You're the only person I'm going to tell this to. And here it is. I mean, that person's going to rise to the occasion, and they're going to bring a listening that's going to be so powerful that they might not even need to give you advice, and they're going to sort you out because the listening will be that powerful. So it's really about how can we use mindfulness to really grow our life and not create and exacerbate our problems.
I loved your book from the very start. I realized, wow, this guy and I are kindred spirits. I'm literally looking at 4 typed pages of notes of quotes that you have in your book from people that I admire. Andrew Huberman, Ryan Holiday, David Asprey, Joe Dispenza, Lewis Howes. But the theme that just keeps coming up over and over and over again, Byron Katie, Rumi, is to be in the present moment, not take yourself too seriously, grab your power back, and you don't act as an empowered being when you're grousing and complaining about the circumstances that you're in. In fact, you've got this great quote about what circumstance actually means. I love this, the origin of the word circumstance, because we use words and we don't really understand what they mean. But in Latin, it literally means to stand around. So when we let circumstances dictate our experience of life, we are just standing around, bystanders to the lives instead of being creators of it. That's one of the quotes in your book by Jason Goldberg. I love that. And the whole book is echoing that same theme over and over again, that we're not, life is not about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. Powerful, powerful words. And you very clearly bring it back to home, because you show us examples of where you went to a retreat and you were all living in love and bliss. And then as soon as something negative happened, you caught yourself, and rather than go down the negative road, which again, that's our brains like what's familiar. It's fired and wired to go what's familiar, even if what's familiar is horrible. But how you trained your mind, your body, your spirit to choose a different way. Talk about that, and how you trained your brain to do the difficult thing, to do the unfamiliar thing, to do the thing that your higher self knew was a better response.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit, you and I, offline about you have to have comedy, and you have to have kind of humor and things, right? So most of my stories in the book are me in airports, right? Because I travel a lot for work and for my personal development work. So a lot of, whether I'm facing with my flight being delayed and then canceled, right? And then you're having that feeling of panic, and you want to like freak out on the ticket agent, and then you're like, wait a minute, this is my meditation, this is my moment of overcoming my environment, right? And what do I mean by overcoming environment? Our environment is a canceled flight. That's an environment. So who are you going to be in the face of a canceled flight? So lately, Tara, more than ever in my life, I'm getting my pleasure not so much from getting what I want, but from seeing who I am when I don't get what I want. That moment when I get into bed and I surrendered to a canceled flight, and then I'm in a 1-star hotel and in a mattress where I'm feeling a little itchy, and I'm like, it's okay. Millions of people would kill to be in my shoes right now.
I love that. That's also one of your commandments. And I think it's so important, because as Pema Chodron, the wonderful, gosh, she's probably in her 80s or maybe even 90 now. She's a beloved Buddhist monk. She was an American housewife turned Buddhist monk. But, she says with sort of a smile on her face, it's pretty creative when we live here in the West and we can complain about anything.
Yeah, right.
because we have it so much better than so much of the rest of the world. So, yeah, talk about that commandment and how it's made a difference in your life and the lives of others.
Yeah, definitely one of the commandments is like, millions, remind yourself that millions of people would love to be in your shoes. I tell a story about I was on an Uber on my way to the airport, and this beautiful African man was telling me he had just come to LA from Africa 5 years ago, and he was telling me how Uber was exploiting their drivers and paying them a quarter of what they're making. And in my head, I'm thinking, I wonder how I can share the shut the F up method, but yet be generous and let him talk. Because actually, one of my other commandments is generosity. This isn't about being the shut the F up police. Like generosity and letting people be who they are, even when they're negative, is the key. How are you doing? We gotta have that space of generosity. And by the way, that doesn't mean we stick around for hours and hours. We can be generous and then walk away and we're done. And that's all we needed to do. So anyway, going back on this guy, he was talking about how Uber was, abusing them and whatnot. And then he asked me where I was from, and I said Venezuela, and the minute you say you're from Venezuela, like, Eric goes into this like real South conversation about the economy, what happened. And then in that moment, for the first time in my life, Tara, I took a beat, and he goes, what do you think it's happened? What do you think about Venezuela? I go, Venezuela is my country and it's a beautiful country. And I haven't been there in a while. And he was like, but what do you think about the president and the communist thing that happened? And then I said, I think he was a manifestation of something that was brewing for a long time. And I think only in hindsight 2020 we'll be able to see the perfection of what needed to happen to get to the next phase of the country. And he was like, well, what's your religion? I was like, shut the F up. No, I was like, listen, we have to remind ourselves that regardless of who you are, millions of people would love to be in your shoes. That's it. I mean, I work with people in our retreats that you and I go to, and I work with people that have ALS and MS and Parkinson's, and a lot of them are so wealthy, they would kill.
And they would give anything to just be able to stand up with comfort and walk with ease.
Yes.
My meditation teacher once said to me when I was grousing about something, he said, Tara, are you ever just grateful for your breath?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because at some point in time, we're not going to be able to take that next breath, and that's going to be the most important thing to us.
Or that it doesn't hurt when you breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every morning I created the GAV, which is gratitude, affirmation, and visualization. I have a GAV notebook next to my bed, and I write 5 things that I'm grateful for, and that's my number one, the breath. Yeah.
Tell us about the experience, because I know people who are involved with the Dr. Joe thing, some of them who have become volunteers never want to be a participant again because they love helping others so much. Can you tell us about what that feels like?
Yeah, for me, what it is like, I love the science behind it, right? I think Dr. Joe is one of the greatest. It's almost like being at a Harvard style class with like the most amazing teacher. You're just like so in tune to everything he's saying. That's so educational, and yet he's so entertaining. He's just like the best speaker. But then add on top of that I'm there helping people that want to help people. Oh, I mean, it's better than any vacation. It's almost like, and then when I do it in Cancun, it's like I'm in the most beautiful vacation, listening to the most interesting topic, doing the most selfless thing. And I do work with the homeless, right? In LA, I serve the homeless every a couple times a month, and I love it. And it brings me so much joy. But to serve to people like you, people that are out there to help other people, you have my heart. Like, I can never go back. That's my experience.
Thank you so much. So what has the reaction been to your book? What impact have you heard about, and, comments that you've received from others?
I just got a beautiful text from my friend's mom yesterday. And her son is one of my dearest friends, and he's been in and out of drug rehab centers for the longest, and can I actually read this to you?
Sure.
And she wrote me back yesterday, and And that, you know, to me, whether it's from the last girl that I helped in the retreat that had MS, that writes me that she finally felt at peace, or anything, or like my friend's mom, you know, she just wrote, Jorge, I just finished reading your amazing book. You're a great writer, and I know my life is going to be so much better using the SDFU method. Your wisdom and passion says a lot about you. I know you're an inspiration to my son, and I'm sure to all that know you. You know, I've never talked to her more than a few times, but I know that she's been going through a lot. So I took that moment to acknowledge her, because we all want to be seen, right, Tara? We all want to be acknowledged for who we are. And I wrote, I feel the same way about you. You and your husband have been such an inspiration to me. You have the best heart and such amazing people, truly the best parent. I know that life has called you has called you upon to really flex your muscles, and you have done it with so much love, vulnerability, and strength. And that, to me, I just is everything, you know, to get acknowledgement. And now, you know, now that I don't have a mom and dad, to hear from parents is just, I feel like the legacy of my parents keeps going.
It makes your heart swell, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's everything.
So let's talk a little bit about epigenetics. You did lose both your parents rather early to cancer, and you have a very strong vantage point that the stresses that they were carrying around likely was contributory to that. I also completely love Dr. Joe's work and have told countless people how great it is that he's quantifying what happens in the body when we raise our heart and brain coherence, you know, how our immune system gets better, our microbiome gets better, our brain waves get better. And to think that this happens all from an epigenetic point of view is really empowering, like your book. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, the way that I metabolize the science of epigenetics is that, listen, the body, you know, our beautiful fight or flight, right? We're not going to antagonize anything here. Is a built-in alarm system, right? And like, we know that it's great when there's a predator chasing you, or you have to, you know, clean the room and you have 2 seconds. Boom, your brain goes in beta, you go on high alert, things get done. Nothing wrong with beta, which is the brain state, which is, you know, you got to go into action, right? But the problem is that we're not turning off beta. We're keeping beta on. It's almost like you're driving to Palm Springs from LA on gear number 2 the whole time. It's not sustainable. Gear number 2 is great when you go there for 3 seconds, but not for 2.5 hours, right? So this state of our brain is just extremely taxing on the body, you know, and unfortunately, I really mind my words now since I wrote this book. The reality is that it's not sustainable for us to be in such a high state of alert for too long, right? And our society right now is, you know, these things are running the show, right? So what are these things doing? Very innocently, we're constantly looking at them. News, the way we consume news, right? I have a chapter called "We're Not Reporters." We've become obsessed with our alarm system, right? Fight or flight also kind of runs our media consumption, right? Because, instinctively, if we know where the problem is, then guess what? We're going to know that we're going to be safe. So we crave bad news, right? That's why you see the high spikes in ratings when it comes to the war, when it comes to murder, because our body tells us, all right, you got to find out where there's a problem to be safe. But the problem is, the irony of it all is that our own primitive alarm system, fight or flight, is what ends up killing us at the end, because by keeping us so intimate with stress, eventually the body breaks down, you know?
100%.
So it's like we almost have two polar things working against each other, but innocently, right? I don't demonize whether it's cancer, whether it's fight or flight. I actually think like a nice balance of both is necessary. It's just like we're going too much on the extreme of one, right? Luckily, this information, like the work of Dr. Joe and all these great new thought leaders, are finally, it's almost like science and spirituality are kind of merging for the first time in it.
Which is one of my favorite things on the planet. I love the fact that this is happening. It's been happening for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
Gary Zukav wrote it in Seed of the Soul, and all the people that are discovering epigenetics and quantum physics, and the Three Musketeers, Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, and of course our beloved Dr. Joe Dispenza. Um, so at what point, because I think this book built up in you over the years, and finally somebody put it to you, well, put your money where your mouth is and actually sit down and write this thing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was Kelly, actually, Kelly Sprague, who works with Dr. Joe. Yeah, it all started kind of as a joke, right? Because I don't know about you, Tara, but I've been going to retreats my whole life, and nothing wrong with it. I love it. I enjoy the community. I love like-minded people, but I bring it back to the example of physical fitness. It's like, wait a minute, you can go on all these retreats, but if you're still eating all those unnecessary calories right before bed, that six pack is never going to happen. That, you know what I mean? And nothing wrong with having the six pack or not having the six pack, but if you are doing all those workout classes, wouldn't you want to just reap the results more than just not? So yeah, I think throughout my whole life, I've been to India. I studied with Sai Baba. I studied with Baron Katie a lot. She's the love of my life.
I love Byron Katie. She's one of my favorites.
She's the one. She really is. I dedicate the book to her and Dr. Joe in many ways. And I think like Dr. Joe's work, what it did, it was like the final straw that broke the camel's back, that I was like, oh my God, people just need to shut up, man. They need to shut up. That's it. It's insane how easy it is.
Well, if you have a conscious loop going on that's firing and wiring an old, terrible, crappy pattern, for God's sake, stop it.
Yeah. And you know what? I compare it to, like, I've never had a stint in a rehab or anything, but I have a lot of close friends that do, and they describe to me what detox is, right? When you're like, when they have to pull the drug away from you, you can't do it. And cutting the conversation of complaining, it does feel like detox in a way, because your body is so used to those chemicals, those hormones of stress. But you have to pull through it, and it will get easier. So at the beginning, when I tell people, yeah, this whole shut the F up method, like, it will feel foreign, but if you just trust it, oh my God, you're going to love it. And it's going to get so much easier, and so much serendipity and magic is going to happen in your life.
I love that you said that. It's the old pattern, that fired and wired familiar pattern. It's like a drug addiction. Even if it's awful, it's addicting. And if you don't have it, if you deprive your body of it, it's like, oh, I want some of that complaining. I want some of that, so I'm really, really glad you said that. And your book, when you read the book, it's like, it just makes it so much easier to see those patterns. And again, you just have dozens and dozens of quotes from my favorite people, Byron Katie, Rumi, just endless quotes from people that I adore. And it's all about taking your power back.
Yeah. And I also bring it to very basic situational circumstances, like you're with your coworkers and your boss. How many times do we form banter about complaining about our boss, like, and get a few laughs around the water cooler? But if you knew that describing your boss as a nightmare keeps him occurring that way in your life, would you do it? Like, is it 20-minute banter worth an eternity of you experiencing a nightmare boss? So
I'm so glad you brought this example up, because you said the person missing out on that is the person that doesn't I don't know whether you called him Bobby or Billy or whatever, but by not realizing there's something great about Billy that's worthy of love and appreciation, you're the one missing out.
Yeah, you're the one missing out. Listen, I bring it also back to quantum physics, right? You as the observer, we're the observer. What we observe, and when we call it out, we lock in the particles. So what do I mean by that? If I look at Bobby and I go, you know what? Bobby is a nightmare. Boom. I just locked in the like quantum, literally like quantum. I locked in the particles. So he has to occur as a nightmare, because we're so powerful. What we call out manifests, and it shows up that way. So then what do? We then turn around to our friend Sally, and we're like, look, here he is being a nightmare. I told you. And it's almost like we get more pleasure out of being right at the cost of the quality of our lives.
Such a great thing. Wow, that's a powerful, powerful point.
Yeah. And it's like, when I meet someone now that I don't like, oh my God, I'm like, I think to myself, I'm going to be so wrong about you. I commit myself to being wrong. I commit myself to being wrong.
That is such a power. I love that. I've walked a lot of the same path you have. So when somebody triggers me, I think, oh, what in me is that? What do I need to fix in me that is responding to that?
Yeah.
How do I need to change? And that's very, of course, Byron Katie-esque. And um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's extremely so much of her wisdom, it's like, and now listen, and I can't, yes, yesterday, I'm in Mexico with my sister, my stepmom, my niece, the whole family, and we're going through, we were in one of those like sales pitch conversations where they're trying to sell you resorts yesterday, and I'm listening to the salesperson, and I'm just be with it, right? And they're doing their job. So the whole time I'm not making anybody wrong, but I'm also clear that I need to exit this conversation. So I'm saying no, and they're questioning my no. And I said, hey, a no is a no, and I don't have to give you an answer. And that's it. I don't have to give you an explanation. It's just a no. And I could feel that. Listen, I was in beta. I mean, I can't tell you that I was in delta and like all love but I knew that it's okay to react. Nothing wrong with reacting. This work is not about just like letting the world walk all over you. It's just owning it. And when we left the meeting, which we left early because I stepped in and I was like, a no is a no, and we walked away, I was really proud of myself. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I was like, you know what? God bless them. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I need to also exit and honor my integrity.
Beautiful. Yep. Boundaries are so great and so good for your own health. So when you missed that airplane, which I think you did a time or two in your book, it wasn't just like you had to wait around the airport for a couple of days. You had to wait like an extra couple of days in this location that you were in this place. But when you surrendered and you allowed yourself to come into a higher vibration of acceptance, great things happened while you were there.
100%. Listen, Tara, I have a chapter that's it's called "A No is a Yes to Something Else." Period. A no is a yes to something else. So now when I get that no, even when I'm in traffic and I miss that meeting, I'm like, the only enemy is my thinking about the situation. Because in reality, I'm just going to be in another now moment of something else. So what I've done is I've cut the refractory period of that fighting against, like, for example, I had an IG live with two great spiritual teachers yesterday that I couldn't do because of that call. And I text them like, hey, I can't make the call. It's okay. You know what I mean? It's like, let it go. And then in lieu of that, I had more family time, which was so beautiful. Or I talk about another example on the book where like I missed a connecting flight in Uruguay. And because of that, I got to like see my aunt that I hadn't seen in 10 years, meet her daughter, which is my cousin, then my friend Isha. Then anyway, at the end of the day, here I am walking towards my gate and I'm crying. I'm crying because I'm going, God, why would I ever doubt the universe when it shows me what I should really have, which is the moment now? You know what I mean? It's like, if I let the universe guide me, the moments are going to be so much better than the ones that I planned.
And truly, it's like when we all look back and at the difficult times, if we navigated them at all well, or even badly, we can often see, oh, there was so many gifts in that. The universe is happening for us, not against us. That's what Einstein said. The most important question you can ask yourself is the universe a friendly universe or an unfriendly universe?
Yeah. And the one thing that the shut the F up method, I do think I am a bit of a stickler about this. We need to have some sort of meditation practice. And I don't want people to be scared about meditation because I know why they're scared, because that's the fight or flight that our wiring goes, don't get into that, because it knows that the minute it does, it'll rewire itself. And it's new thoughts, new ways of being. And our brain is so smart. Our brain doesn't want to learn anything more. It doesn't want different wiring happening, because it's almost like this really effective machine that goes, all right, we're going to keep on looping these 70,000 thoughts, and that way we're going to save fuel, right? But that's where we have to come in and hack it with meditation, hack it with ways. So then when we are at the 405 at the expressway and stress is coming in, you'll see that you lose that charge, or that person upsets you, cuts in front of you in line, you go into empathy and you're loving them and you're going, who the heck am I? But it works. So I really, I'm a stickler about the GAF, the gratitude affirmation visualization. That's going to be your guide. It's going to really help you. So you could adapt to the shut the F up method a lot easier and better.
100%. I think, in fact, I just said it to a client today. It's as important as exercise or eating good food or getting good sleep. Having that time where you can kind of press reset.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And listen, and most of the time, at least for me, right, it's not like I'm like meditating and feeling like the Buddha incarnate. Like it's like exercise. You got to do it. Go to the gym. Don't think about it. Just go to the gym, get your reps done. But as your day unfolds and you're feeling empathy and love and compassion for the waiter or the guy that's moving slow, and that's when you'll feel the love for your practice.
I also love the story that you told because, like you said, it's not about becoming the STFU police because people, don't get benefit from you pointing the finger like that. You talked about a time where a friend had come to you and when you started going down that road, they said, "This is why I never come to you because you don't listen or you don't listen compassionately." Can you tell us about that? Because it was a really raw, very honest scenario you were telling us about.
Yeah, that was actually that was going to be my last chapter. So it's almost to the last, and I had a friend that I saw on social media that he had written something about having a problem with an authority figure, and then I asked him about it, and I know that I asked him about it because I wanted to almost like throw the SDFU method in his face. And when he told me, I remember he's telling me the story, and I can't even wait for my turn to talk, right? Which is one of the commandments. Like, you got to listen and not just wait for your turn to talk. And finally I said, yeah, you need to do the SDFU method, man. That's why this keeps happening to you. And he was like, I wasn't looking for your advice. I just wanted to tell you my story, and I wanted a safe space. And you haven't been there. You haven't been that for a while in my life. And it was a bit of a slice of humble pie, because I realized, listen, I don't have to be the SDFU police or a teacher. The greatest thing we could be for anyone is a safe space. And once we get that, listen, Tara, I've gotten to a point with this work that at the beginning, I admitted it was a bit like, if I had a friend that would call me and they were complaining, I'll be like, hey, I have to go. Hey, and like, I would do everything to not be in those conversations. But now I really, I kind of leaned in more into generosity and how could I listen, and it's almost like a practice, right? It's easy to be with friends, man. Friends are a bunch of great little idiots that are loving you and you're loving them, and it's easy. Like, bring me an enemy, bring me someone that's gonna make me have irritations, and that's the workout, right? That's where you do your reps, where you do your shoulders, because if you can be in that environment and not just be with it, but even transform it, that's when you've mastered something really special. So I think most of the time when people are telling us to do that, people just want to be heard. I don't know what your experience is. What is your experience? I think people just want to be
100%. Well, if you don't hear them, then they won't be interacting with you. So, I mean, you can offer advice, but it has to be asked for. It has to be wanted. If you're just throwing it out there, then yeah, 100%, people aren't going to respond well. I love what you said about people needing an irritant. I love this Huberman quote that you have in there. Adversity is not just a stumbling block. It's an opportunity to demonstrate resilience, creativity, and growth. What a great quote. As Tony Robbins says, when something comes up that's big and scary in his world, which has to be really big and scary because he's conquered so much, but he kind of perks up and goes, "Oh, a worthy adversary." Well, if you think about people sparring, it's no fun to play tennis or some kind of sport against somebody who's not any good. I mean, you don't get bigger, stronger, better, wiser by just having stuff handed to you on a silver platter. Not that we all want icky things to happen, but when they do, we can at least take it as an opportunity to, learn what there is to be learned.
Yeah. I think those irritants in our lives, whether they're diseases or people or situations, they allow for our inner diamond to be created, right? Those irritant conditions allow for our greatness.
Right. A diamond doesn't become a diamond without pressure.
Yeah, it's got to go through a lot of pressure, right? So I think as we navigate through life and we feel those pressures, conquering those pressures by the way we narrate them, oh my God, you have the keys to the kingdom, right? It's like, we've glamorized like, oh, I want to manifest this and use powers to turn into that. I mean, we kind of all have that power already by the way we narrate our lives. We can narrate our lives into the most beautiful things.
I'm so glad you just said that too, because this what is it called, a simile, the eating the dinner. What do we call that? A metaphor. You said, if you could just wave a magic wand and make all the difficulties go away, it would be like stuffing down the most delicious meal ever, and it wouldn't give you an opportunity to just savor every bite along the way. I love that simile because it really makes you think, oh, I don't want to rush to the end of the meal. I want to just really be present and experience what's going on. I mean, that is really a one of the great gems in your book.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think about that a lot. I think of like, at the end of the day, like the only thing we're gonna have is this now moment. Now moment. How do you want? What do you want? You want the billions of dollars, the yacht, the boats, the perfect health, and then what are you gonna have? More now time. That's all we're ever gonna have. More now moments. So it's like, why would this moment be less than that moment? And to know in a conceptual way, an intellectual way, that if we are cultivating or even creating an addiction that this moment is not good enough, that it's about that moment, then we're teaching ourselves for when that moment comes, that it's also not that moment, that it's the other moment. And then you get the partner, it's like, no, I know I wanted the rich partner, but I didn't want the alcoholic partner. I want okay. And then you have to go, oh, wait, I wanted the partner that this one he's impotent. No, I didn't say that. So when is it? You gotta lean into your moment. This is it. I mean, how many people do we know that life took them? A truck came, a fast disease, and it's like, if you knew that this was your last day, if somebody would have told you in the morning, and then you're going through your day, like, how would you have acknowledged every breath? How would you have looked at your family members, your neighbor, the Starbucks person,
And it's never about the external stuff. It's about the internal feeling, which is yours to have.
Yeah. It's trying to find, and I think the quest is wholeness, right? It's like wholeness for me is emotional autonomy and emotional independence. And it's almost like being on a 90% of peace. And then you have that 10% that will fluctuate, meaning like the great news or the bad news, but you can't mess with that 90%.
So awesome. Jorge, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're with your family. You're in a beautiful resort. How do you want people to find out more about you? Of course, they can get your book on Amazon or Audible. I love that you read it. And again, I was laughing out loud at the gym, and I didn't care because it was just so fun to listen to what you were saying.
Nothing makes my heart get bigger with love than knowing that I made a difference for you. So thank you so much. I think I'm very active on Instagram. It's at Jorge Perez Jr. And then obviously our website is stfumethod.com, and I send blogs and releases, and pretty soon we're gonna start putting workshops, and I am doing a few one-on-ones just to teach the method to people that want to learn more. So you can book some sessions there, and yeah, those are my go-to ways of getting with people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, folks. I know you got value from this. Please click subscribe and like, and we'll see you on the next episode of Next Level Healing.